Welcome. My name is Solomon Adote. I have the distinct honor and pleasure to serve the constituents of the state of Delaware as the Chief Security Officer. I work with the Department of Technology and Information, and very soon I'll introduce you to our Chief Information Officer, Cabinet Secretary for the Department of Technology and Information. This is our 14th cybersecurity conference. That is a very significant number when you think of when the state started taking cybersecurity seriously. Some states are now coming up with conferences. Some states are now partnering with third parties to do conferences on cybersecurity. When we've had a cybersecurity conference for 14 years, and our team of not just employees, but partners, volunteers. I mean, we have people from the private sector, from the universities, volunteering their time to put all of this together. So please, let's take the opportunity to thank all the volunteers and all those who made this possible. You know, on my way here, I had the chance to think of the significant events we've had very recently. I'm sure everybody here is completely aware of the MGM cybersecurity breach. If that is not a wake-up call to all of us of how critical this is, that one incident should be. $100 million lost in one quarter. That is a significant number. If your business is slots and gambling and you can't gamble or run slots, you can't get your customers into their rooms. I mean, your systems are down. The CEO said we were literally in the dark. And that is the reality of us not doing what we're supposed to do or not supporting our organizations in the way that we want to. Yes. So, first off, I want to take the chance just to thank all our sponsors. And, you will ask, why is this important for us to have sponsorship? And it's not necessarily, as a public sector organization to generate funding. It's to bring the world's leading technologies to you. We're not saying small business technology. We're not saying public sector technology. We're saying what countries use, what nations use, what the banks use, what the big organizations use. We try extremely hard to put them right there for you to make the relationships. Like I always say, and I partner a lot with our local government leaders here, that when you're in crisis, you don't want to call the 1-800 number, right? You want to call Bill because you have Bill's cell phone number because you met Bill at our conference. So please take their information, put it in your wallet, put it in your bag, because these are the individuals you can call on and it'll put boots on the ground to help you. So thank you so much to Red Shield, Vertus, NetStream, the Center for Cybersecurity Assurance and Privacy, the University of Delaware as a whole. We'll get to thank them some more. CrowdStrike, Abnormal, leading email security solutions, Proofpoint, the world's leading email security solutions out there, Fortinet from a perimeter security perspective, PSCI. PSCI enables the state to run. I'm telling you, they enable the state to run. They enable the state to run. If I said, find me somebody who can speak AI, they'll find them under a tree for me. So that's the power of partnerships. CNT Infotech, Porter Anderson, a lot of our cyber-related legislations are enabled by them. Deloitte, digital government services you consume across the state, across the country, delivered by their expert levels of skills. Cass Severn. We had so many sponsors we didn't have enough space for because we wanted them to be in positions that you can interact with them, you can get to know them. We have CyberArk, we have other leading organizations here. So I want to thank them all for their time, taking some of them traveling across the country, bringing in their goodies for you to enjoy. so you will continue to remember them. The passport is in your name information. Please ensure that you get that signed off by every member of our vendor list. This year, you don't want to miss the raffle. I mean, if you leave, I got you. I hold on to it for you. First up, we got iPads, we have printers. Yes. You should leave at 3 o'clock. So 3:30, I can hold on for you. But make sure you have it all checked out by 2 p.m. so you get extra tickets. I mean, we even have a drone. Now, make sure our Department of Emergency Services is not here. Make sure you fly it not above your home.
There's a flyer about that out on the DTI table.
Yes. Read about the flyer about your drone. Hashtag SECDE23. Make sure you get busy on social media, on LinkedIn. Let them know what we're doing here and all the excellent keynotes we have. We promise we won't make this about AI, so I'm going to say AI 10 times. AI. So we get that out of the way. It's all about AI, so you hear a lot about AI, but not necessarily just about AI in itself, but the value it brings to all the capabilities we want to have. And then finally, whole of state. That is the theme of our event today, whole of state, because we're all in this together. Can you imagine the economic impact to Las Vegas from the breach? Now you might say, well, it's a private company, they got breached, it's their problem. But the economic impact across that town, across all the entities they manage, is significant. A small impact to a city, a small impact to a student, to a school. You can see the downstream impact on parents, on just people not being able to show up to work because their kids are home. We are all in this together. That means that we can't be successful individually. We have to work as a team. So whole of state is our theme for this event. As you learn, think about not just yourself, think about your family. What can you take to your aged parents? What can you take to your families? What can you take to your companies? So whole of state, critical topic. Please take that back with you. Again, sharpen your skills, learn more, and be of value to not just your organizations, but to the state as a whole. At this point, I have the distinct honor of welcoming the Chief Information Officer for the state of Delaware, Gregory Lane. Gregory's going to introduce our next speaker and also share some words with you this amazing day. So please join me, Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Solomon, for that wonderful introduction. Good morning. It's really good to look out and see so many faces joining us this morning. Solomon said this is the 14th year, and this is just an incredibly important event to continue because it's a very, very important topic. As Solomon said, we're probably going to hear AI 100 times a day. Last 2 weeks attended 2 conferences, and they were all centered around AI and what the capability can do for the good. But sadly, as much good as AI will do, there are going to be bad actors, and that's why we need all of you who do what you do. I'm happy and honored to be here to help kick off this event. Thank you all for attending. Of course, I want to again thank all the sponsors. We can't do this without all the sponsorship and the partners we have today. I want to thank again the University of Delaware, as Solomon has done. It's my understanding at the university now in the electrical and computer engineering department, they have graduate studies now in cybersecurity, turning out the kind of talent that's needed to continue to do what everyone in this field does. For that matter, I want to thank the Dean of Engineering, and just a little plug, because I went to school here with the Dean of Engineering, and I came out of the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering, so just have to give a shameless plug for the university as well. And I don't know if she's here, but thank the CIO, Angela Chen of the University of Delaware, for all the great partnerships that the university has with the state. I especially want to thank our DTI conference team, Solomon and Sandy and Claudette, Heather, and all the many volunteers that make this possible. It's an incredible amount of work that goes on behind the scenes to get us here today, and I look forward to having a wonderful day. I hope you all do too. It's going to be lots and lots of dialogue, learning, and hopefully we can all network and meet someone new in the field. I think it's important that we make contacts. That's how we progress in not only the career, but understanding how to keep one another safe as it comes to cybersecurity. As many of you know, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we can't emphasize enough the importance of education around this topic to protect yourselves and your businesses. Technology is an amazing tool, as I said, and can do so much to improve our lives and work. These same tools can be dangerous in the hands of bad actors. So that's why we have events like today. So I'll get out of your way and let us get on to all the wonderful things that we're going to do throughout the rest of the day. Before I introduce our speaker for this morning, I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment to make a shameless plug for our award-winning Did You Know website. The DTI team does an incredible amount of work. There's a lot of information, resources, events on that website. So if you can, take a minute and go to digiknow, D-I-G-I, digiknow.delaware.gov, and take a look at what they have out there. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the speaker for this morning. Sean Ebeling is a 30-year IT professional from Dell with architecture positions in both healthcare and pharma. He has a leadership degree from Villanova. He's a certified information systems security professional and has Security Plus and Imprivata certified engineer. Sean wrote his first program in 1981 on a Commodore 64, so I'm not trying to date him, but he likes to tinker with microcontrollers and microprocessors, things like Raspberry Pi. For fun, he has built his own arcade cabinet, and he brews beer. So he said at some point later we'd like to have a beer together. He has a wife and 2 children, and please join me in welcoming to the stage Mr. Sean Ebeling.
Thank you. Great introduction.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely.
All right. So first things first. All right. It's been a hot minute since I've done one of these in person. So if I break out into a cold sweat and fall down, the defibrillator's over by the door. Please grab it. Okay. So I put this together for an internal Dell kind of marketing strategy with my friend Sarah Arpino over there. And what we were finding is we were trying to sell Dell IT security solutions. And everybody said, oh, this stuff doesn't really happen. We're fine. It's okay. No big whoop. So I wanted people to see some of the things that I've seen over the years and understand a little better. Like, this stuff is the real deal. So we put this stories from the field discussion together, and hopefully you guys will get a little bit of entertainment. We won't scare you too much, more or less. I'd rather just educate you that this stuff can happen to you, okay? And so if I could have the next slide, I guess. All right, so we did some of this already. If you guys look me up on LinkedIn there, I'd be happy to speak to you about all the things that we're doing today at Dell, or just talk shop, okay? So some of you are new to the field, some of you are veterans, Some of you are way better hackers than I am, I'm sure, but we can commiserate and help each other out. So this is probably my first foray into social engineering. So my son was about 3 years old, and I'm hanging out, I think it was on a Saturday afternoon, watching a couple of college football games or something along those lines. And I get a call from my boss who never bothered me on the weekend. He said, Sean, I want you to go to California on Monday. So that's 2 days away. And I have my son's 3. So I said to Rocco, why? I can't just, up and leave. Can you tell me why? And he says, I can't tell you. You have to say yes first. I said, okay, well, let me go talk to my wife and make sure everything's straight with getting the kids over to daycare and all that. And so I talked to my wife, Melissa, and it all, she said, yeah, sure, no problem. Go to California. So I called him back maybe half an hour later, said, Rocco, yeah, I can go to California. What do you need? Well, I'm kind of all in. I'm curious. What do you need me to do? He says, I can't tell you. So why do you need me out there? So what happened was he said, call, my boss is going to call you in about an hour or two, and he'll give you the scoop. I was working for a company at the time, and that company had a child company, and we see this a lot. I don't know if you see this within the state as much, but you'll have a parent company, the child company, they never quite integrate Active Directory. There's always a lot of extra hoops with the network. It almost seems like somebody has a fiefdom of some sort. And so what was going on was there was the CEO of that child company was trying to market that company's information and data and business plan overseas. And they couldn't prove it because we didn't have access to the network. So I get the story, I get the pretext. I went in under the guise that we were going to do some sort of upgrade to the network and start trying to get everything all set. Went in on Monday morning, completely unannounced, with one of these things where I was like, okay, what do you mean I'm not on the list? Let me call my boss. And then my boss, everybody's like, well, all right. So finally, they're in a frenzy and they're like, well, yeah, we got to get this project done. I want to say within an hour I had domain admin access to that network. I continued to steal 2 terabytes of data on this, what was going on, and show network connections to South Korea, okay? So this is a social engineering thing, and in this case I was the good guy. Not always the good guy, right? But it does happen, okay? So why do I tell this story? Well, one, it's a fun story, and it's much better over a beer, I promise you. But what I like about it is we did all of it. We did this sense of urgency, we did the pretext, and it was a completely fictitious story about what we needed to do. And I am the worst poker player in this room. I guarantee you guys would have all my money right away. But because I was being the good guy, I could do it. And there are a lot worse people out there that will do this sort of thing for much worse cases. Needless to say, that CEO was taken down. He was walked out by police later that day. And I actually got to hang out in Hollywood for a couple days because we didn't know how long it was going to take, and I had booked the flight out on Thursday. So nice little vacation and good story. I didn't tell this story. I want to say it was at least 10 years before I told this story. And I'm sure some of you guys have, similar stories, so. This one was during a different time in my career when I was leading a team to develop Azure for one of the companies I worked for. And what we did there was we took our time to set up Azure, okay? And I want to warn anybody here who's starting their cloud journey, use best practices. We delayed a project by 6 weeks because we wanted to put a firewall in place between us and Azure. And one of the senior folks on my team made a huge mistake, okay? And he made the mistake because he's a human, right? It's really easy to do this stuff. So what happens, we're on a Zoom call. We're doing, walking through all the different things for the first VM in Azure. Again, fortunately, that firewall was up. At the time, and I haven't looked lately, but Azure used to give you 2 network cards. One was directly connected to the internet by default, and one was directly connected to your Azure network by default. So there we were, we're clicking through. This gentleman starts clicking like he was paid to click fast. He was super excited. He wanted to be the first guy to have a VM in Azure from the company, so he would have bragging rights. Well, so as it turned out, he was super happy for 5 minutes. Because our firewall started picking up. Somebody had hacked that server in 5 minutes because it was directly connected to the internet, and they were banging on the front door. So we do have, there's a couple of vendors out there I was speaking with that may be able to help you with that sort of thing. Dell partners often with a company called Netscope that does it. But there's, definitely software as a service, infrastructure as a service. You want to make sure you don't misconfigure it. It's super easy to do, right? And we want to make sure that you guys are doing it safely. So these softwares will go and look for any kind of misconfiguration and call your attention to it. CrowdStrike has a really great module. I believe they're one of the sponsors. And what's cool there is we'll call attention to it, okay? And then we're going to tell you how to fix it. And their product in particular has a link directly to where to fix it on what page. So they do a great job over there. This one's a little more recent, okay? So this one here, we were working with an entertainment company. I got a call from my good friend Darren, who was my salesperson, like Sarah's my salesperson now. And he said, hey, we've got this company out in New York. I need you to talk to them. They've been hacked. The reason they knew they were hacked wasn't because this company was ransomwaring them. They were using them as a launching point to steal credit card data. So they had hacked their Exchange server. For whatever reason, this company still had Exchange on-prem. I think a lot of us have moved away from that. They had Exchange on-prem, and so what they were able to do is send out emails that looked like they were from that company because they were coming from that company's Exchange server. People started showing up at events. They didn't have tickets, but what was worse is they were stealing people's money, right? I think some of us have been in that situation where, somebody, maybe it's an MGM or 23andMe or whatever, has been hacked, and they steal your data. So how does Dell help in that situation, and how do you protect against that? So we were able to do some digital forensics in this case, and we were able to find what was going on in the environment. I actually helped write some PowerShell code because I'm not just a salesperson, I've actually done this stuff for a living. And so I was able to collect some data from the servers about accounts and things like that. And so we were able to get them, get the bad guys out of there. And then ultimately, what we were able to do is help them with our version of MDR, okay? And there's a lot of versions of MDR, but the idea there is managed detection and response. Managed detection and response is going to be the tools that pull the data in from your firewalls, et cetera. We layer on some analytics on top, and then we're going to see when there's any kind of bad guys involved in that sort of situation. From there, there's a lot of flavors on it, how this can be done, a lot of different underlying technologies, but the idea is to catch the bad guys and make sure they're out of there for good. And unfortunately, there's no silver bullet in this industry. It's got to be somebody watching the wall 24/7. And a lot of times, I heard AI might be a bad word, but AI is definitely something you want, to power this, because you don't want to look and chase down every alert. Our customers routinely have hundreds of thousands of alerts if we just looked at the raw data. And if we did that, we'd never be able to scale. I mentioned the defibrillator earlier. This was a defibrillator moment, okay? So I do proof of concepts all the time. And normally, we put our antivirus on systems. You know, maybe we're lucky to get 10 systems into that POC. In this case, this is a county government, we'll just say in the Mid-Atlantic, I don't want to name names. And they actually installed it on 100 systems. And they were literally kicking the tires, and they told me this afterwards. We weren't sure that we were actually going to do this or not. We installed it. Typically when I do this sort of thing, you know, we get 2, 3 alerts, and they're good alerts, you know. But this was the first time we actually uncovered something real, you know, and not just somebody trying to click on a link or go to a bad website. We uncovered a system that had a reverse shell back to the Russian version of Azure, and somebody had taken control of an endpoint. When this happened, you know, I installed it, let's say 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. Wednesday morning, I had to leave other meetings and cancel everything I was working on for the day and go get into the console with them. They called me in a panic saying, yeah, we've got hundreds of alerts. I was in there this morning. Okay, I looked at them. Wow, you do have 100 alerts, and they're real, and you know, whatever. So what we were able to do is pull in our services team, and this was not a normal thing. We had to kind of get some approvals at the VP level, because I didn't want to be the sole person that said yes or no on what we were going to do next. This was potentially going to turn into an incident response situation, and to some degree it did. What we wound up doing is we narrowed down. There were a handful of systems that had false alarms, and then there were a handful of systems that had real Russian attackers doing command and control. So we took those offline. We used the tool to isolate those systems, pull them offline, and did a reimage, and then we emergency deployed to that environment to make sure that those folks were covered. And we went from something that was kicking the tire to you know, they actually bought the software for good reason, and you know, they're a happy Dell customer today. So how does Dell help in that case? EDR and MDR are going to be those answers. I talk to people every day, and I'm sorry if I'm throwing around EDR and MDR. I want to make sure I define those for you guys. So EDR is going to be endpoint detection and response. All right, that's right there in the acronym, right? That's really going to be all the processes running on your endpoints, okay? We often talk about XDR. That's going to be more of your SIM, where we're pulling in data from multiple sources, typically network and cloud, authentication, that sort of thing. And then that's what the X is for. It's kind of like, you know, we're just going to use the algebraic X for that. And then MDR is really managed XDR typically, okay? At least that's the way we do it at Dell. There's a couple of small tweaks depending on which vendor you're working with. But EDR typically isn't enough. You want to get to that MDR so you can see things coming and going. In particular, if I were to ransomware your environment, I'd probably do privilege escalation before I did anything else. So you want to understand, if I can catch you during privilege escalation, we don't get to that ransomware situation. Your AV doesn't have to be that last line of defense in that case. Can I get a couple head nods? Does everybody understand EDR, MDR, XDR? Awesome. So this is the one that I really want to avoid, okay? And I used to, and the guys in the back are great because they helped me change this. I made a small tweak to this because I didn't want to be crass today. I used to have a crying baby in the top right-hand corner, okay? And I don't want people to think that I'm that type of guy. That would be crass like that. But we had a guy that I was trying to sell antivirus to, okay? And his name, well, I'm not going to tell you his name. Can't tell you his name of his company, right? Got to protect the innocent. I was chasing him down. I was like, hey, you know, we've got this POC thing we can do if you want to try it out, similar to that Russian hacking situation. He didn't have time for me, but I called him a few times and left voicemails and whatnot. I don't know, maybe 6-8 weeks goes by, and I hear from him, and he said, I get a phone call from some random number I didn't even recognize. I picked it up, and he says, hey, Sean, it's, we'll say Joe, okay? And Joe was like, man, I wish I'd have bought that antivirus because we've got a problem. Our whole system is out. What do I do? Okay. This particular company was down for about 2 weeks. And during that time, I spoke with them every day and helped them any way I could with our incident response team. It turned from, unfortunately, it turned from a selling opportunity into a situation where he was like, I got to buy it now. Tell me why to buy it. I didn't get through 3 sentences. He's like, yes, it's perfect. Let's do that. As things went on, he got more and more tired. He got more and more exhausted. Towards the end, he had gotten to a point where he was up 72 hours straight, maybe like midway through the 2 weeks. And I always go on video on Zoom. I like people. I'm one of those few IT folks that like people. And so we were on Zoom. And so he starts doing this, taking off his glasses and doing this. And the dude was crying on the Zoom. And I felt terrible for him. At that moment, I thought about, what would I do? I was, I've got a mortgage, right? We all have mortgage. We have kids. We have loved ones of some sort, right? I didn't want to be, none of us want to be in a position where we're unemployed. And this gentleman, much like me, had some gray hair, right? So sometimes that gets a little tough. Anyway, long story short, we helped him out everywhere we could, but I don't want anybody in this room to be in that position if you don't have to, okay? It is real world stuff, and that's why I was invited to talk about this is, these are some of the things that really do happen. So whether it's me, whether it's somebody else out there, find somebody, get a little more skilled up, get something in your environment that's gonna help you do what you need to do. So I added this one kind of last minute, and this one isn't my story, but I heard about it when I was giving this presentation a couple weeks back. So we do a cyber recovery vault and some other backup services and things like that over at Dell. The story fits really well into like the motif here. What happened was we had it was a cloud backup solution that we provided, and we monitor for customers. This particular customer had been hacked and didn't know it. We were seeing they went from having many, many terabytes to having issued some sort of delete command to their cloud infrastructure, okay, that we had sold them. And come to find out, we tried to reach out via email, and we got, no, that's normal, that's fine. Really? So the engineer on our back end, rather than taking that as okay, went and tracked down this gentleman's phone number. The admin had been hacked, the person who owned the system. And the bad guys were getting ready to detonate something on the back end. They had actually deleted, or started to delete everything in the cloud about halfway through. And the reason I tell this is two reasons. One, you want to work with a good partner that can help you out and go that extra mile. And two, we're cybersecurity professionals, but we're able to be hacked as well. I'm going to throw this up. You guys feel free to read this. I think the MGM thing is certainly one of the bigger situations. The 23andMe. That came across my news feed the other day. I thought that was very interesting because it wasn't clear to me whether or not the DNA information that they had was hacked, but that seemed like the most personal type of attack that you could possibly have. If you guys aren't going out and reading, there's a dark reading, Tom's hard drive. There's a whole bunch of places that I go and get, but they just pop open on my browser in the morning when I go to my home screen. The stuff really is real, okay? And how are we as a cybersecurity company or as a cybersecurity task force group, whatever you guys call yourselves, how are we dealing with that? Well, we can throw money at it, okay? And that helps, but I think Having a partner, having a plan, that sort of thing is going to go a lot further, okay? There are certainly my favorite next-gen antiviruses out there, but some of them are going to be, some of them get pricey, okay? So you may find some situations where you have one that's good enough. But I always tell people, buy the best you can afford and the one that fits your environment the best. Same with MDR, same with any of the other tools that you might be looking at. How are we doing on time? 15 more?
Yes.
Okay. So if we're going to invest in things, invest in your people, invest in your tools. Go to events like this in particular, okay? Want to make sure that folks have a good education on this. And the things that we learned 10 years ago, we have to know those, but it can change on a dime. So what's going on in the cybersecurity space? We talked a little bit about it. Another interesting one, there's a podcast that I listen to, and my kids laugh at it. They're like, are you listening to that hacker show again? If you guys, I'm going to plug this guy. I don't know him anything, but there's a guy called Darknet Diaries. Some of the folks out there will kind of make fun of him because he gets very dramatic with his presentations and things, but they're fun to listen to. Later, maybe about late 2 weeks ago, they were talking about Red Alert. They were talking about AI phone calls. A lot of this stuff comes down to trying to fake people out, okay? And this is going to be harder and harder to deal with, right? You can certainly do social engineering. I would suggest to you that you take the time to, even if you think it's your loved one, if they're trying to get you to send money or something like that, ask them a silly question. Hey, how's Joe doing? I heard he had a heart attack last year, and Joe's completely made up. And if they start saying, Joe's doing better, okay? Keep in mind that you don't need to be on the offensive, but you gotta be prepared. Things are changing very quickly here. Red Alert in particular was an interesting attack. For those, we see the news coming out of Gaza and Israel. Red Alert is supposed to be something that warns against rocket attacks, that sort of thing. Somebody thought it was a great idea to use a fake version of that to scare people and steal their data, right? There's certainly different types of technologies. You want to make sure you're getting your software from a trusted vendor. Go to that marketplace. Make sure you're going directly there. Don't trust those links that are out there. So one of the things I wanted to do here too is, and ultimately it doesn't have to be Dell. Would love to talk to any of you about that, but give you some ideas of how to pick a partner. Okay, you want to pick somebody that can help and not make things or make work for you. I do see some vendors out there that are going to say, hey, when you get hacked, we're going to send you an email and you'll know everything that happened. I like people, again, like there's something wrong with me, but at the end of the day, having sat through and dealt with some attacks, there's a learning curve to every single attack. So working with somebody that can help and isn't just going to say, hey, go fix this is big. I know on our team we have folks that, because we cover so many different folks, they're going to probably already have seen your particular type of attack once, right? And certainly this is with anybody that isn't covered with some of the tools as well as others. But make sure that you have somebody that's going to help, not just go, hey, you need to go patch XYZ and I'll talk to you later. That's weak, guys. I really do think that's weak, and I see it all the time. Pick a vendor that's going to have multiple options, okay? One of the things that I know I was banging on my manager when I first started at Dell 4 years ago, we got to have options. It can't just be, hey, this is the best whatever software that's out there. Like I said, not every software is going to fit every environment. So we've gone to more of a multiple options kind of thing, and we stay current, okay? Our teams are all working on their certified ethical hackers certifications. Some have passed, some are still working on it. I'm still working on mine. It's a tough one. But, you know, make sure that you're working with a partner that's going to be there for you and knows what's going on. And just to be clear, like that, the services folks have those certifications. I'm more of a salesperson now. Like I said, I changed careers. Does the company have enough staff to assist? Okay, so I told you about that gentleman that was crying on the phone. He did not have an incident response retainer, and before he reached out to me, he called 3 different companies that couldn't help, because when you're getting hacked, everyone's getting hacked. At the time, I think it was Hafnium was the hack that was happening, and you know the amount of calls that were coming into the vendors were so high. He was given 48 hours before he was going to get in the queue and have to wait. So if you have an incident response retainer or something like that, where you have an SLA of, let's say, 2 hours for help, that's going to be big. Again, would love for you guys to go Dell, but you don't have to. Just make sure you have something like that in place. Make sure your partner's fiscally responsible. So prior to coming to Dell, I used to sit on your side of the table all the time until about 4 years ago. One of the things that we started doing as architects was looking at the financials of companies, because when you've been in the business for 30 years, you've been burnt. We didn't want to get, partner up with somebody who wasn't going to be there when we needed them. And there's a few of them out there that financially don't look good. If you don't know how to read them, go on YouTube. Go check out their stock ticker. Go on YouTube and find out. You can always do the sucks test. I always put in the name of the software in sucks and see what comes up, and see where it goes from there. Make sure you guys are thinking about your certifications, not just your certifications, but the certifications of the products you're choosing. Do you need a FedRAMP? Do you need an ISO certification? Like, jot this stuff down before you even start engaging vendors, because you can open or close doors very quickly and save yourself a ton of time and headache. Where can I find force multipliers? Okay, so another thing I would do in architecture was I didn't want to make more work for people. I wanted to have net less work for the team. Otherwise, the money spent wasn't worth it. We started doing what we called right sourcing. I'm not a huge fan of outsourcing. Ben had too many companies and watched too many good people, have to get disruptive with that. But there are times when you can take people who maybe would be just doing firewall all day long and give them better opportunities. So if something like that is what you're looking for, maybe you can have somebody manage your firewall for you, and those people can do better things to make the environment better. Look for ways to automate. I did do some SOAR architecture for a little while, everything around APIs. I'll plug CrowdStrike again. They're doing some cool stuff in that space. If I see this, do that sort of thing. And of course, AI is prevalent. If you've got nothing, maybe you guys are in that position, I hope not. If you've got nothing, start with your incident response retainer. Who am I going to call? What am I going to do? This is super critical. You don't want to be that person that has to wait 48 hours because everybody else is getting hacked at the same time you are. Incident response plans. Okay, a lot of us have them. And I used to hear about these tabletop exercises, and I used to laugh at them until I went through my first tabletop exercise in the cybersecurity world. And a buddy of mine was leading it, and he said, "Okay, pull out your incident response plan." So I started navigating to the network drive. And when you do these, it's almost like a Dungeons & Dragons thing, where they're like, "Okay, well, this happens and that happens." And so I start going out to my network drive, and he goes, "Yeah, that's encrypted. What are you going to do now?" And he started laughing. I started laughing. He's like, "I'll let you pull it up, but you should really have this printed out." Okay, so make sure that you have a printout of that. Multi-factor authentication. Okay, if you guys don't have it, get it. I don't sell it. I say it to my customers all the time. This is one of the best ways to make sure you're really who you are, okay? Don't use SMS-based pass multi-factor authentication. You'll see people are actually breaking into like AT&T stores and stealing the iPads to get the SIM information and get it redirected. We also see a lot of social engineering where someone will say, hey, I'm from, let's just say FEMA or something like that. Again, the pretext of some sort of emergency. And we need to know that you're okay. We're gonna send you a number, send it back. Well, what's likely happening is rather than that, they're probably looking at your bank account information. They've already got your password, but need that multi-factor to get one step further. Buy the best next-gen AV you can afford, okay? Don't go bargain basement on that one. It's first and last line of defense for sure. We talked about EDR, XDR, MDR, okay? Everybody here knows what that means now. If you can get it, get an MDR. This is a good spot to right source. Train your employees, okay? And have a culture where we all help each other out, talk about it, right? And take these things seriously. I've seen things where, every system in a company had the same local admin password, and, the hackers went through it so fast. And I remember years ago trying to talk to my employers to change that behavior. CyberArk's a good one for that. Another sponsor here today. They can help you with that. Got all that, now what? If you guys aren't looking at frameworks, NIST, CIS, top 15, et cetera, do you guys have PCI or HIPAA concerns? Pick a framework and chip away at it. It's going to be a multi-year journey, okay? It's not a question of if I'm going to get hacked, but when. So start getting better today, okay? Do ongoing assessments, okay? Let's see. Tabletop exercises, we talked about that. Vulnerability assessments and or management, okay? Always good to have an outside set of eyes, and I was always shocked when I would tell my bosses for years, we need to do X, Y, Z. Somebody from outside came in and told them the same thing, and all of a sudden we had a project. Manage risk, okay? If your cybersecurity is so locked down and your cybersecurity is so expensive that it doesn't make sense, you're not going to get the dollars to do it, okay? So make sure you're in a good space. If you're spending $1 million and you guys are only making 100K, you're not going to have that cybersecurity program you need. Do security in depth, okay? So when we talk about security in depth, we used to use least privilege was what we used. A lot of times now you're going to hear zero trust and that sort of thing. So make sure that you don't just trust your next gen AV, have a firewall in place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think you guys kind of get the idea. We talked a little bit about our approach. We do a consultative approach. You'll have if you were to work with Dell, you'd have an engineer or an architect like myself, and we have been bringing in a lot of really good talent. Some of it homegrown, some of it brought in from the outside like myself. We definitely want to be there to help you. We're a little different than some of the other cybersecurity vendors, and I don't want to take away from anybody because I don't know everybody in the room, but make sure you can find somebody who can help you rebuild. And you want somebody that's here when you need us, right? So I get a lot of phone calls in the middle of the night, but I don't turn my phone off at night because I've had to wake up and help folks out. Anyway, if you're interested, let me know. These are some of the vendors that we work with, okay? I don't want to get too salesy on this, so we're going to skip over that. But we do have, we do services. We work with these partners as well as Microsoft. And we have some things along the bottom that are built into the systems like Safe ID, Safe BIOS, and Safe Screen. So you have a real safe supply chain. And that's it. But I'd like to open it up if anybody has any questions. Are we good on time? 5 minutes? Okay. Questions? Who's shy? We have too many shy people? All right, what do you got? So you could go as cheap as Google Authenticator or Microsoft. I'm fine with those. I like Duo, and I rolled Duo out at a hospital, and we picked them because they were, forget which compliance it was, but the reason we rolled it out, and we'll come back to a story. A lot of people know about the epidemic of painkillers, okay? And I helped roll out some controls around painkillers when I was at a hospital system. You know, and it was near and dear to me because my wife's friend, her boyfriend at the time, got addicted to painkillers, okay? And I'm sure everybody, maybe not everybody, but I would bet a lot of people have seen it. We rolled out Duo because they were certified in that. And the coolest thing was Duo, you could, you know, would go to your iPhone and you just had to tap a button on your watch even, and it would do your second factor authentication. Same question? Awesome. You know, again, check those requirements, right? Because you don't, like Google Authenticator might be fine for Joe's Donuts, but it's not going to be fine for a hospital, probably. What's up?
With so many people now since COVID working from home so much more, have you seen attacks come from private network of an employee and medical business?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, make sure your folks are using VPN. If you can force them to use VPN, and some of the tools that we work with will have like basically next hop VPN, and that's it. This is really critical. You know, even before COVID, I would see attacks like that, and there's a number of folks out there that sell devices and or software. I don't work with Aruba, but Aruba used to do it. We rolled that out at one of the companies I was at, so you would have a little more secure path, and then you can really control what's coming and going. Go ahead.
What about your own personal data, you know, not just, you know, for employment, but essentially you leave a data trail every time you pull out your phone, every time you send an email, watch a video, like a post, any of those things. You're constantly leaving a data trail without even realizing it since people use text more and more. So what kind of precautions would you recommend for just protecting your own personal
This is something that keeps me up at night because I haven't thought of a good reason or a good way to solve that problem, right? So hopefully folks like you and the folks in the room can help solve that. Like I'll give you an example. I was really against getting like those Google devices and the Alexas, right? Because I was like, these things are listening to me. I finally broke down because I realized my iPhone was listening to me, even though I had turned it off, even though I had turned that feature off. And if you guys aren't real sure that it's doing it, start talking about zebras and tell me what kind of ads come up. You'll see a lot of guys and gals wearing white and black. And we signed up for it, unfortunately, right? Like we all say, I agree. Even if you were to read it, like, and I've read some of them, and I'm like, yeah, but I want to use my phone, and they changed it. It's gotten very toxic too, right? So that doesn't help. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Sean.